The next three important codes that we found, one is Wage Code 2020, the second one Social Security Code 2020, and the Occupational Health and Safety Working Condition Code 2020. So, in this lecture, we would like to deal with Wage Code of 2020, which comprises and consolidated and amalgamated those acts like the Payment of Wages Act 1936, the Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Employees Provident Fund Act 1952, the Payment of Gratuity Act 1972, and the Payment of Bonus Act 1965. So, what exactly under the provisions of Payment of Wages Act 1936, which was amended many times and finally it provides where it covers all employed persons receiving monthly wages not less than 1,600 employed in factory, industrial and other establishments, and in railway the act regulates the date of payment of wages and deduction from wages as fine or otherwise, and in particularly it also include workers in tramway, motor transport, air transport, dock workers, jetty workers, inland vessels, mine workers, also workers engaged in quarries or in oil field or in plantations, construction workers, and also it relates to development and maintenance of buildings where workers are engaged, also workers engaged in roads, bridges, canals, and generation and transmission and distribution of electricity and power. And exactly, wages include all kinds of salary allowance. Payment of wages shall be paid before expiry of the seventh or 10th day, or in case of termination before expiry of the second working day. Deduction may be made as fines for absence from duty, for damage to or loss of goods, for house accommodation, or for amenities and services by the employer. All such deductions should not exceed 50% of the wages, and in case of cooperative societies, it should not exceed 75% of the wages. It applies to all persons working in factories under the Factories Act of 1948, and also overtime wages under the Minimum Wages Act of 1948. So now we'll discuss what are the very provisions relating to wages under the Minimum Wages Act 1948, which is now a part of the Wage Code of 2020. So, the very objective of the Act provides for a minimum limit of wages to protect unorganized workers, no exploitation by the employer, and no periodical revision of the wages. Here, wages means all remuneration, including house rent allowance, but does not include medical attendance amenity and services, pension fund, provident fund, traveling allowance, scheme of social insurance and gratuity, fixing of minimum wages. Government shall fix, review, and revise the minimum rates of wages and the fixing hours for a normal working day and fixing the total number of hours worked in a working day of rest in every 7 days, and also provides overtime the work done by the employee in time over and above than the time prescribed. And also it provides regarding calculation of wages. An employee is to receive the minimum wage unless due to his unwillingness to work and omission on the part of his employer to provide him work. 9 hours for an adult, 4.5 hours for a child. It shall not exceed 12 hours for day, including rest, and 48 hours in a week. And the next important act that is falling under the Wage Code, and that is relating to Employees Provident Fund Act of 1952. As per it provides institution of funds for factories, industries, and establishment of 20 or more than 20 employees. The Act does not apply to cooperative societies employing less than 50 employees without the aid of power. All factories, industries, and establishments are given a grace period of 3 to 5 years to the scheme. So, an amendment made to the Act in 1998, and as for the amendment, the contribution to the fund shall be 10% by the employer of the basic wages, dearness, allowance, etc. of the employee, and both sides contribution for the first month shall be paid by the employer. The contribution of the employee is the same and shall be deducted from the wages of the employee. And the employer at maximum can contribute 12%, but the employer is not bound to deposit the same. And as per the amendment of 1998 to the Act, the contribution to the family pension fund are in the following manner. So, 1/16% by the employer and 1/6% by the employee and 1/6 by the central government. So the total is 3.1 half percentage. And now we'll discuss another piece of legislation that is falling under Wage Code is the Gratuity Act of 1972, which applies to all kinds of establishments employing 10 or more than 10 persons. Gratuity is payable to all employees on 5 years continuous service on retirement, resignation, death, or disablement due to accident, or in case of any disease, and on termination. In case of death, the 5-year limit shall not be applicable. All employees drawing Rs 1000 and above are eligible to claim gratuity, and in case of death, the nominee or the legal heirs of the employee. The employees are payable at the rate of 15 days of wages for every completed period of 1 year, but does not exceed to 20 months' wages. For seasonal employment, 7 days for each season. Gratuity of an employee can be deducted for the loss or damage or destruction of the property of the employer on equal value. Gratuity can also be totally forfeited due to violence or disorderly conduct and for the offense of moral turpitude. Gratuity amount payable to the employee can be recovered by the district collector as arrears of land revenue with the compound interest of 9% from the employer, and also the act applies to all those establishments where 10 or more workers are engaged. So, it is payable to employee if or his or she resigns or retires, and the very payment at the rate of 15 days salary of the employee for each completed year of service subject to a maximum 20 lakh. And now we'll discuss another piece of legislation that is falling under the wage code, that is the Payment of Bonus Act 1965, which applies only to enterprises with over 20 people, requires bonuses are paid out of profits based on productivity. The minimum bonus is, as per currently, it is 8.3% of the salary of the employee. And as such, under the wage code of 2020, we found the first one relating to the Payment of Wages Act 1936, the Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Employees Provident Fund Act 1952, the Payment of Gratuity Act 1972, and finally the Payment of Bonus Act 1965. So, these are the acts which are consolidated and amalgamated into a single code which is known as Wage Code 2020. And in our next upcoming lecture in this series, we'll discuss about the Social Security Code, and that Social Security Code constitute mainly Employees State Insurance Act, and also the Maternity Benefit Act, and also the Bonded Labor Abolition Act and Child Labor Prohibition Act, and also the Unorganized Worker Social Security Act of 2008. So, hereby we complete our Second lecture in this series relating to West Coast of 2020.